So today I'm talking about another CPM is dead blip. It's because it's not visual. Let me show you why. So I love to kind of hook people into the CPM is dead, but it really is. And not the actual schedulers themselves or the people that are doing it. We need those folks more than anybody else. I have a great explanation of what I'm talking about in a webinar that I hosted for the Lean Construction blog, link down in the description. But let me jump right in and show you another reason why CPM is absolutely dead in construction. CPM is non-visual. So let's talk about the CPM schedule on the left and how it correlates to a line item budget of all the things that you're tracking in your construction budget right now, every single charge, and how they're the same exact thing. So the schedule on the left is every single activity that has to happen, that will happen, over the life of the project. It might be a 40-page schedule, it might be a 50-page schedule. Heck, if it's a mega project, it might be a 400-page schedule. But it's every single task that has to happen on the project. And what did this tell us? A lot of things have to happen on the project in a sequential order. Great. That's awesome. Now let's talk about what's on the right. Well, this is every single line item of things that either have been charged or will be charged that we're hoping to have charged to the project. Now, if an owner came to you and said, okay, I need to know how we're doing schedule-wise on this project. You might say, okay, Mr. Owner, here's a 40-page schedule. This is how we're doing. And he or she would say, okay, thank you for this encyclopedia of information. What does this mean? Well, here's what we're doing right now. We're doing this, and then we're going to do this next, right? That's the sequential order of what we're doing on this project. And the owner would say, okay, are you going to finish on the date that you said you were going to finish on? We say, yes, you can see we're still scheduled for that same date. Great. Then the next time in your OAC, what's the end date? Great. Like you might show some pictures of what you're doing right now and say, well, this is what's coming up next. And they kind of yawn and say, okay, great. Awesome. I'm not sure what that means, but you're building it. It's in the same order you said you would build it. Great. You're hitting that end date. Okay, great. That's all I care about. And then you move on, right? And let's talk about how that is the same thing with the budget. If the only thing you gave to the owner was, okay, Mr. Owner, here's a 500, 1,000, 1,400 line or page budget. Here's the budget. Yeah, but like, how are our financials? Like, what are we looking like? How are we going to be doing? Well, here's the budget, and here's how we are, and these are the things we're spending money on, and we're going to spend money on shoring in next month when we do shoring, and there you go. And yeah, the is going to 10 million, 40 million, 1 billion, whatever the budget is. Yeah, we're still going to be able to charge just that, and that's what it'll cost. Okay, great. And then in the next OAC, the owner would say, okay, are you still going to hit the 1 billion, 40 million, whatever it was, right? Are you still going to hit that target financially? Yes? Okay, great. That's all I care about. I move on. Like, that's how they would treat it. But that's not what we do for budget. That's not what we do for costs. Those are not the things. We talk about costs way more in depth. And why? Let's talk about it. We make it way more visual. So here's a way visual rendition of the budget here on the right. Yes, we'd go through and we'd do pie charts and we would do bar graphs and we would do all sorts of things that show us summations of the same information. Yes. Did we give this same information in all of those pages that we would have given them? Yes, of course. But did it mean anything? Absolutely not. And this is why we use KPIs or different visual dashboards or whatever when we're talking about financials, because it shows us the same amount of information, way more condensed, that we can see way more information. We might see trends over time. We might see declines. Like, these are the things that we're looking for. And so those visuals help us to see that, not just the raw data. CPM schedules give us, here's raw data. That's what we're doing to owners when we give them a CPM schedule. Here's some raw data. Great. Now what do I do with it? But let's talk about how schedule really can be visual as well. Here on the left, we see a visual schedule. Now, if the same exact information as the 40, 400, 200 page CPM schedule, It's just summated because it's a three-dimensional schedule that's visual. We see time across the top. Each one of these rows represents an area. So you see interiors has all these different areas, which correlate with a map. And we might have these maps to show us. So we have multiple visuals that give us an insight into our schedule. And so we can see, okay, I can see that our structure is what's kicking off interiors, and that's how we get all the way to the end date. So this is why if anything happens here in foundations, like that's going to be a problem because that goes all the way out to linking here and pushes us all the way out to the end. So I can see that correlation. If anything happens in the structures, it's going to affect the interiors. Now, all of these different things might mean something or another, but this one-page graphic that I call a takt plan usually helps us to see way more information. What things correlate from the exteriors to the interiors? Well, maybe the glazing has to be done or something else to dry in the building so that we can start drywall or the interior finishes. And when that pushes on the exteriors because of some owner change or something else, we can show that visually and not just say, here's this, and then have to fight about its CPM, whatever the link was or wasn't that it should have been in the CPM, and then basically have lawyers fight about it for years and years and years. We can see the correlation. We can see how those things react one to another. So being able to visualize things is a huge plus when we're talking about different systems. Becoming aware of these things, like I talked about in the previous video. This is the first step, is to be able to see your problem. So make it visual. This is why Takt really, really works, because it's a visual schedule. It's not just two dimensions of activity by time. It's activity, it's location, time, and process. That's what Takt planning is all about. So let's move on. What else is a problem with CPM? Well, like I talked about in the last video, the actual calculation itself is only looking at how bad we can fail. And this is what I like to show when I'm talking about that. CPM is the moving target. The schedule is constantly moving because things change all the time. So it's a schedule that is encompassing the variation. It doesn't help us to combat it. It is the moving target. So it helps us to just keep firefighting. Well, this path right here is critical path because these take the longest. Well, guess what? If blue pushes, well, blue becomes the critical path and it pushes longest. So now we focus on this. And what happens is we start firefighting because the only thing we're really hyper focused on is the critical path. But yet everything can become the critical path. So if this drops off of being critical, we're gonna take our eyes off of this red path and onto this path because this becomes critical. This is how CPM just helps us to firefight. It puts us into the firefighting mode so that when we go to think about how we're actually going to plan and do something, we're saying, okay, this is critical, so I need to focus on my critical path. Focus on your critical path. That's the thing that'll get you to the end date, right? Well, oh crap, something that I wasn't focused on became critical. Okay, now I focus on that. Well, guess what? That's called firefighting. Having your focus here, there, and everywhere, wherever the problems are. That is firefighting. CPM equals firefighting. There you go. So let's talk about what we're actually getting out of CPM. Well, CPM helps us to optimize to make sure people are staying busy. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But what we get from optimizing for people staying busy is busy people. But let's look at what this actually means over here. You get what you optimize for, which means we don't have a lot of things to do because everyone's working on a lot of stuff right now. But yet there's not a lot of stuff getting done because there's so many people just working on a lot of different things. This is what CPM helps us to do. Where flow, if we optimize for flow, we get finished work. And why is that? Because instead of having people stay busy, we're focused on getting things done, meaning that we don't want a lot of work in process. We want to have a good, working, stable amount of things to do in our plan so that we can do them one at a time and get them done and not just pile up all the work. Now, I told you I was going to talk about how I know that us optimizing for people staying busy is what we do in CPM. Here's what I'm talking about. When you get your forward and backward pass and you finish something early, what happens to something that's down the line? It pulls in, saying, do it now. Increase your work in process, which is the top. Meaning, keep people busy. Crap, we want to shove the next trade in there, so like pull it forward. Think how you would feel as a trade partner if you turned over something early and were asked to rush into the next area before you were prepared, before the schedule said, just because it opened up and the calculation said, do it now. Increase your work in process. You would stop telling the general contractor that you can finish early. You would stop trying to finish early, and you would fill the entire void. So everything that we do with our current traditional system with CPM increases our work in process, keeps people just staying busy for the heck of it, decreases the trust between the GC and the trade partner, and also doesn't even help us to finish things on time. So if we're optimizing for people to stay busy, if we're optimizing for movement, we'll get movement. We'll get more work in process. But if we want to get things done, we will optimize for flow. We will optimize to decrease our work in process. We'll optimize to make things easy on the workers. We'll optimize to make it so it's a pleasant work environment. This is what you get when you optimize for flow. This is what I rack my brain on. Everyone just continues to do the same thing, expecting a different outcome. But the problem is, in construction, we have no reason to change what we're doing. We're making money. It's all good. But guess what? The tide is changing. The reason why is because we don't have enough workers and people coming into our industry or staying in our industry anymore. And so we're starting to feel that pinch in the industry. And I believe that production, flow, Takt, these things are the way of the future for construction. If you want to learn a little bit more about Takt, I invite you to go out there. There's tons of information. I have a ton on my YouTube channel. There's a ton I've done with others, collaborating. There's tons of information out there. I invite you to go out there and search and learn more about Takt, flow, and production. I invite you to the amazing Takt Planning and Control introduction course that I did with the Link Construction blog. I'll put a link down in the description, but please come join me and learn about the basics of flow, production, and Takt in construction. Can't wait to see you there.